Symbols have a lot of power. The cross, the crucifix, menorah, the Star of David, the crescent moon. Right? Symbols have a lot of power in religion, in life, the American flag. And, the symbols are powerful. But as Christians, could we be using the wrong symbols?
You gotta light your candle, light your candle, light your candle on the front porch of hell. You gotta light your candle, let it burn bright in the face of the devil. Light your
Hello, my name is
candle.
and I'm just going to do a quick little ditty. I had my friends, the Farrells, came over tonight, and I was showing them around my studio, my house, and it was actually the 6th swim party in the last couple months. I think that's pretty cool. One, it's one thing to have a pool, it's another to use it, and man, I'm using it, so it's been fun. But they came over tonight, and I was showing them around, and I pointed out the menorah here. And I've talked about these books before, but the Lost in Translation books by John Klein and Adam Spears, these books are awesome. When I get some money, I'm going to order a big case of them. And maybe I'll talk to these guys about, condensing them into one volume. But these are some of those transformational books for me as far as an understanding of the Bible. Basically, they argue the Bible is a Hebrew book, which most people are like, well, duh, yeah, the Hebrews, okay? And the Old Testament is written in Hebrew, or the Tanakh, or the Torah. The New Testament, most people think was written in Greek, maybe Aramaic. But they argue, actually, the New Testament may have been written in Hebrew, at least originally. But either way, the Bible is written by Hebrew and Jewish people who come from a Hebrew point of view. And this gets back to the menorah. The menorah here is interesting. The menorah, when the menorah was first crafted, it was crafted by a man that was full of the Holy Spirit. I talked about this previously, but the Holy Spirit inspired the menorah. Okay. So these 7 things. Now, what they get into in these books here, they talk about the 7 covenants. and I won't go into all the details here, but there are 3 covenants. There's the blood covenant, there's the sandal covenant, and then there's the I should probably do research before I start talking, shouldn't I? But why change now? Okay, why jump ship up midstream? Okay, so anyway, there are 3. And then the final one is the wedding covenant, where they become one. So there's it's actually kind of Abraham. You got the sandal, the blood covenant, bought with a price, salvation. Then you have moving from that to a friend, and then eventually to the bride and bridegroom. All right. So there's interesting, because with the covenants, what they talk about, again, these are their books. This is their stuff that I'm butchering, but basically they talk about how the light, the shamash is, I believe, the center. You start and then you light. All right. Well, what happens with the covenants? God initiates, and then we respond. Then God initiates, we respond. God initiates, we respond. And then the finals, the wedding supper of the Lamb. All right. So the menorah is a very powerful symbol. And so what they argue is actually, to really understand the book of Revelation, you really need to know the menorah. And so they have some very fascinating things that they talk about. But the point of this video, I just want to do a quick little thing. I wanted to acknowledge the Farrells coming over here, and they said they're all going to subscribe, or they didn't all say this, but I'm going to double my YouTube subscribers, woohoo, from 11 to 17. Not very good at math. Okay, so now, but this is a symbol. Now, this menorah is inspired. It's actually created by someone filled with the Holy Spirit. Now, the cross, the Bible mentions the cross a lot. Okay, of course, it's my Texas cross. Okay, but the cross is a powerful symbol as well about the sacrifice of Jesus. Now, again, in my opinion, I don't have a strong biblical way of putting this, and I'm not being anti-Catholic, but I do not like the crucifix. Now, the reason for that is really has to do with the cross and the crucifix, for those who don't know, the cross is without Jesus. The crucifix is with Jesus on it. Okay, and it is important that we study the crucifixion and understand what Jesus went through. The Bible goes into a lot of detail about what Christ went through on the cross, and that's not the problem. My problem is I feel like the crucifixion, really, the crucifix at least, is almost a glorification of the humiliation of Jesus. Now, who would want to glorify in the humiliation of Jesus? I don't want to do that. So one of my problems with the crucifix is that it's basically, it would be kind of like I save your life, okay? And while I'm saving your life, okay, I go into a burning building, not me, let's say whatever. Okay, somebody saves your life, but while they're saving your life, to save their life, their clothes get burned off, and they're running around in their underwear. Okay, terrible mental picture, but here's the deal. Afterwards, when they saved their life, let's say somebody took a picture of it, okay? Well, would it be cool to put the picture of that person saving your life in their underwear? Would it be okay to put that out there for the world to see? Now, maybe you could crop the picture a little bit. I don't know, but I don't know. It just seems like if somebody saves your life, wouldn't you want to show them respect? And putting Jesus naked or with a little loincloth on a cross and keeps it. And again, I'm not saying it's necessarily evil. I'm not saying that. I just don't like it. Okay, and there may be some other things to it, but I don't want to humiliate Jesus. I don't want to glory in his humiliation. Now, remember what he did. Remember what he suffered for us on the cross. But to have that picture there, of him, I mean, he was basically naked on the cross. He maybe had a loincloth, but maybe not. And it was a humiliating thing. And I think, and this is my personal opinion, but I think, that's a demonic thing. Because they're the ones that want to glory in the humiliation of Jesus. They humiliated him. And they liked it. And now God used it. And God was glorified in the resurrection. It's awesome. But so the cross, I don't really have a problem with it. Obviously, the Bible talks about the cross, quite, taking the cross and and so forth. And the menorah. Now, the Star of David is not so much. We talked about this with Israel. The Star of David actually could be more of a Gnostic symbol, which is again interesting that the two symbols associated with Israel are the menorah, which is the Holy Spirit inspired, and the Star of David, which is problematic. But anyway, I won't get into that here. But what I wanted to do is just kind of do a quick little thing. Oh, and this is what I was telling the Farrells when they came over here. One of the things they talk about, and that we kind of miss in the Revelations, when it talks about Jesus and the seven churches and the seven spirits and so. It says there are seven lampstands. That's what the English translations say. Well, the original is actually menorah. There are seven menorahs. And so they argue in one of these three books, I think this one, what they argue is that to understand Revelation, we really have to go at it use the menorah as kind of our guideline or our template, if you will. If we use menorah, and you think about the covenants going back, the Shemos going back and forth. Well, in Revelations, it talks a number of sevens. You have the seven seals, you have the seven churches, you have the seven woes, the seven thunders, you have these seven, and I think there's seven sevens. Okay, so if each one of these is a seven, so they call the master menorah. You have each one of these is its own little mini menorah. Okay, and then so to really understand it, to really understand Revelation, you have to come at it from a Hebrew point of view. So the menorah, here's an illustration. I'll scan this in and put it better. But basically what I was saying, what they're arguing is that there's the blood covenant, the salt covenant between Abraham. So Adam, the blood covenant, salt covenant, Abraham, sandal covenant, burning bush with Moses. And then, of course, the marriage covenant. So these are your different covenants. That would make a fascinating video at another time, but I'll have to be a little more prepared for that one. So, anyway, in Revelation, I think, there's no accidents, I think. I'm definitely, positively, almost sure that there are no accidents in God. Everything is by design. From the colors of the rainbow that represent kind of the different covenants, to the order, the menorah, how this is structured, to the way Revelations is set up with the sevens and the seven sevens. And so these guys, what they do in their books is they take this and they kind of overlay Revelation into this. Because one of the problems when you read Revelation, and even a lot of the symbols, like David's or the statue that Daniel or the Nebuchadnezzar saw, they argued that was actually a menorah, but an upside down menorah, which is interesting because you have the head, Babylon, and then of course Persia, Greece, Rome, and then of course there's one other. So there's these 4 kingdoms or 5 kingdoms. Well, if you have the upside down menorah, and if it goes this direction, then what's the previous direction? So if you look at like the body, it says, okay, you, O Nebuchadnezzar, are the head, and then it goes down, and so people kind of look at that whole thing, where they argue, wait a second, what if you came down this direction, but you went up this direction? And what that would be is if you went up this direction, the very first kingdom was Nimrod's kingdom. And I talked to the pharaohs a little bit about Nimrod. Nimrod's a fascinating person. Tom Horn, Steve Quayle, some of these other guys have done a lot of research on this. Michael Lake and others. But Nimrod is a very fascinating guy. But he was the first kingdom, Babel. So you had to continue from the first to last. And this is interesting too, because if the last kingdom on the earth is iron mixed with clay, but if you go back to the beginning, as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. In the beginning, you had a mixture of bronze and of iron and clay, and Nimrod was a mixture. He was actually 2/3 Nephilim and 1/3 man, or 666, which kind of gets that back into that code, but we won't go there too far. But anyway, but the point is this: they argue about the menorah. They use the menorah extensively in these books to kind of make sense of it. So what I was saying briefly, a lot of people, when we look at Revelation, when I've read Revelation can be confusing because you start and you just read straight through, and that's how Greeks read. All right, and the Greek mentality, the Greek way of thinking, is very linear. Okay, it's a very linear progress. You start here, beginning, middle, end. Okay. Well, the Hebrews had a little different. They were linear, but they were also cyclical. Right. And so they have this kind of a combination thing. Of course, in the Eastern, you have very cyclical. So the Eastern religions are very cyclical. The Western religions, what I think is very linear. And then Hebrew is this mixture. It's both linear and cyclical. And when you look at Revelation that way, it makes a lot more sense, especially when then you connect it to this. So anyway, I could say more, but I'm about to run out of tape, and then I'd have to actually do some research before I did this. But that was kind of something I was sharing tonight with the Farrells, and I thought it would be kind of interesting to go ahead and shoot that. So shalom, thank you, and let me know what you think. There's a lot more information in these books. Please check them out. I'm going to make some links down below, so you can check these out on Amazon and buy them and read them, and and all that good stuff. Thank you.